Thank you very much for coming to Austin. You talked about anti-Semitism in the mainstream of the Democratic Party, but really gave only the examples of Representatives Omar and Tlaib. And I guess I wouldn't really consider them mainstream. They're very interesting in bringing new ideas, but they are, and even when as Tlaib came out with It's All About the Benjamins, she was attacked by her own party as well as,
that was Omar, yeah.
others.
Omar, yeah.
But I mean, Donald Trump would like you to think that they are the mainstream.
Of course.
But can you give other examples or why you said that?
What I mean, maybe the word mainstream was wrong. What I meant is that anti-Semitism has become politically survivable in the Democratic Party. And that's just true. Meaning, we'll see if they're voted out or not, but the fact that Ilhan Omar can say the things she said, but more than the things she said, the fact that she can support, and I don't have so much time to go into the BDS movement, but a movement that says there should be no Jewish state between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. That is what the BDS movement says. It's not about ending the occupation of the West Bank. It is not about giving Palestinians rights, which I support. It's not about a Palestinian state. It is about saying there should be no Jewish state. And we know what minorities in the Middle East that have no protection, what happens to them. It's the Yazidis, it's the Zoroastrians, it's the Christian exodus right now from the Middle East. 10 years from now, there's not going to be Christians in the Middle East, a story no one cares about.
So you're wondering why, if...
so to me...
where is the opposition to this, or the challenge to this?
I'm saying, given that Ilhan Omar supports that she has said all about the Benjamins, that she has said, that Israel hypnotizes the world, and that she still gets invited and on Face the Nation and feted in the pages of Vogue, to me that's a sign that there's a problem.
She's mainstream?
Well, what's mainstream?
The leadership of the Democratic Party?
Sure, I would say that right now, if that's how you're defining mainstream, I would say you're right. But would you agree that the political wins and certainly the base are sort of at the backs of AOC and the rest of the squad? Because I would. Maybe it's just my generation. I hope you're right and I'm wrong. Yeah.
Okay. Sir.
So how does one criticize Israel's treatment of Palestinians, and on very specific levels of the homes, the increasing of the territories, of the Jewish territories, even the promotion of a boycott without being labeled anti-Semitic?
But you talk about that in the book. I mean, that actually is. Is it possible to criticize Israel and not be anti-Semitic?
I will prove to you right now that it is. I believe that the Netanyahu government is betraying not just fundamental Jewish values, but the memory of 6 million people who were murdered when it cozies up to neo-fascist leaders like Brazil's Bolsonaro or Viktor Orban in Hungary. I believe that, the Jewish state should be a state of all the Jews and not just of the ultra-Orthodox. And unfortunately, when I went to the Western Wall in March, I was spit on as a feminist and a journalist when I went to a feminist event. I believe that, when I've gone to the West Bank, and I've gone many times, and I see the weight that Palestinians have to go through a checkpoint to go to their work in Israel, it's a strain on the Jewish soul. I'm comfortable saying all of that. What I am opposed to is the singling out of the Jewish state for treating it almost as sort of a uniquely diabolical state that somehow is guilty of worse human rights abuses than China, North Korea, Russia, and Syria. And to hear a lot of people talk about it, it really seems that they think that's true. To me, that is a conspiracy theory, just as it is a conspiracy theory to believe that Jews control Wall Street. And that's what I'm opposed to. So criticizing Israel, criticizing its treatment of the Palestinians, criticizing its internal policies, that happens every single day in Knesset. Israel is a democracy. Criticizing it is totally acceptable. What I'm opposed to is the demonization and the delegitimization of Israel.
So you would have no problems in people advocating for the boycott of certain Israeli products?
I draw a distinction between boycotting products that are made in the West Bank and boycotting products that are made in Israel proper. But I'll say this about the BDS movement. That's the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel. It's had absolutely no effect on the Israeli economy at all, which is booming. What it actually does in real life, and I talk to college students every day who experience this, is that it makes the space where anti-Semitism can thrive, especially on college campuses, much, much wider. And the reason for that is clear, because what BDS insists on is the idea that Zionism is racism. That is a piece of Soviet propaganda, which I go into in the book, a piece of Soviet propaganda that has been hugely successful and that we're all living inside of if we live in progressive spaces. And if Zionism is racism, then Zionists are racists. Well, guess what? 95% of American Jews identify as Zionists. And the reason for that is because Zionism, just as I said before, that the idea of not oppressing a stranger is a fundamental Jewish value, so is the yearning to return to the land of Israel, where there has been an indigenous presence for thousands of years of the Jewish people. So if you're insisting that Zionism is racism, then Zionists are racist, then Jews are racist. And they're getting treated like it every day increasingly on places, on elite college campuses is just one example, not to mention, the streets of London.
Thank you. Good questions.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to stop right there, I'm afraid, so we
Oh.
can get Barry downtown and get me back downtown as well. I'm sorry to have to cut it off. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your time with us. Please give Barry Weiss a big hand.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.